I was muted, but we got it. Welcome to episode 6 of the Abject Demiurge podcast. We today are going to talk to Michael. There's a long parenthetical after that, which is fantastic because I want to know all the things. So I'm gonna try to waste less time than I normally do and just run this intro thing. My link tree's up there. I've been trying to use the Substack more, so if you find anything of value here, you can either go there or just subscribe to the channels and whatnot. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do the intro and we'll get started. I had the intro on loops. Okay. All right, we got it. Okay. Okay. So, Michael. So I crammed it all down there in your little thing. Coffee roaster, singer-songwriter, craft rum, and botanical distiller. I like it.
Yes.
So let's start there. Talk about what you do with those things, and then we'll go from there.
Well, it was about 8 or so years ago. Me and my wife decided to start a coffee shop, and with that came me deciding to learn how to roast my own coffee. I wanted to have more of a hands-on, approach to what we were doing. So that started the coffee roasting. Since then, we've grown the business quite a bit to have a full-size 2-story coffee shop with a roastery built in. We're doing commercial. We're doing, just the cafe. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The singer-songwriter thing, that's come from, I've always been a musician. Always, been singing and writing and just enjoying that. Went through a period of time where I was a performer and I did a lot of shows, but then that's kind of dwindled down now, and I'm just really enjoying just playing and writing and singing and not having to put deadlines on myself or having to, cram gigs into a weekend.
Yeah.
And then the craft rum botanical distiller, that is the latest business venture, but I've been doing that for close to 15 years now. And we just decided recently to go legal with it. And so I started with the craft rum. That was what I've always distilled, what I've always played with. But then due to my wife's love for gin, I started getting a little bit into that. And then I discovered a whole new world of just awesome fun of just messing with botanicals and
that's cool.
Yeah, just being able to create all these awesome flavors.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, let's say, that time was not an issue, money were not an issue. Let's say like you could spend your days doing anything that you wanted, any creative venture. Would it be a combination of those three things? Would it be one of those things? What is the most natural to you?
Actually, none of those.
None of
those.
Yeah.
I would actually, if money and time were no issue, it definitely would be baking bread.
Baking bread. So baker too. Man.
Yeah. So that's, we joke around, we call me the rustic hipster.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not, people hear what I do. They, I talk to people on the phone or whatever, and they're like, oh, this guy's such a hipster. And then they see me and they're like, well, this is not what we expected.
Yeah.
I don't fit into the normal hipster look.
Yeah.
But we joke around because, I'm the rustic hipster only because we live in a city. If I was out in the country, they'd call me a homesteader or a prepper.
Yeah. I get it. I get it being in Texas. I get it.
But yeah, so
All
the
I
bread
have to do
thing,
is all I have to do is wear a hat in Texas, and they're like hipster.
yep. The bread thing has always been, that's always just kind of been my Zen thing. That's why I've never
Yeah.
turned it into a job, is because I love
Yep.
it too much. And once you turn it into a job, it's no longer that relaxing,
It becomes
hands
work.
in the dough. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Okay, so maybe we'll include that a little bit in here then. So, out of let's see, let me make sure I'm not skipping the things that I mean to talk about. So, what specific experiences have inspired those in your life? Any of them, all of them?
I mean, the singer-songwriter thing, that's just inspiration comes from everything.
Yeah,
When I was doing a lot more gigging out and I was writing a lot more, it kind of leaned towards, I was writing a lot about drinking and partying because that was what current life was.
yeah,
And, you always felt like you were kind of on a deadline to get another song because we've got a gig coming up and it'd be nice to introduce another song. Well, the only things we're really experiencing right now are drinking and playing music. So
yes,
that's what I would write about.
yeah,
Nowadays, the songs are fewer and far between, but when they do come out, it's, the last thing I wrote was actually about my daughter
yeah,
and just watching her, take things slow and make me take things slow because she's, we're out on a walk. She wants to stop and look at the flowers. She wants to look at the grass,
yeah,
something that's completely uninteresting to me on a normal day. Then all of a sudden having this, 4-year-old inquisitive mind that just wants to check out the grass, it makes you stop and check out the
yeah,
grass.
yep,
So then it's like naturally there's a song in there.
yeah,
The coffee roasting, it sounds corny and cheeseball, but my customers inspire me with that. Like I
yeah,
love getting the feedback from our customers and from, somebody comes back to town from a vacation. They're like, oh, so I went and I visited this place and they had this coffee and it tasted like this and it was amazing. And it
yeah,
makes me want to make the next story they go to tell somebody else. Like,
yeah,
oh, so I was down at French Creek Coffee and Tea Company and
yeah,
I had their Peru single origin and it was really good, And then the distilling, I don't really know what is the inspiration there, other than just
experimentation.
experimentation and just
Yeah,
loving that a simple change like switching from green pod cardamom to black pod cardamom in a gin, and all of
yeah,
a sudden you have a gin that's peppery or a gin that's more earthy and more subtle,
yeah,
and just little tiny changes. It's just awesome to play with.
yeah. That's what this was for me. This was experimentation that turned out to be something I assumed that I would probably hate, but actually I'm enjoying because I'm not a in front of people person ever.
Most of the time, neither am I. Like I
Yeah,
did it for the music and everything, but now it's like I like going off and roasting my coffee, and I
yep,
do that in my private, and the distilling. I do that when there's no customers around and I get to
yep,
be alone and just
yep.
focused on creation.
Okay, so what do you consider would be the ultimate goal in any of those? Do you feel like you've been successful? Do you feel like there is a farther like rung of success that you could meet? If so,
I mean, yeah, and I think that's like the curse of any creative person is
hmm,
like I could sit there and say, I've hit the pinnacle of where I wanted to be
yeah,
2 years ago. I'm there. But now there's more I want to do.
yep,
And now I've created a new pinnacle in my mind. And like there's always that drive, that push to just go a little bit further because there's something else.
yeah,
Or you get that positive feedback from the coffee roast and that's good, but I want more.
yep,
I want more of that positive feedback. Like I crave that.
yeah,
So I gotta, go find the next awesome bean and roast it to the perfect level and develop the flavors just right. So, that same customer comes back and tries that and is like, oh my God, you know.
yeah,
With the distilling, I mean, I have goals with that I haven't met yet. But the distilling, it's kind of when I turned it into a business, now it's a very slow, like I have to step back and realize that, my goals are now, instead of like, hey, being legal would be cool, it's now, once the business has enough money
Yeah.
to spend on this experiment that could completely be a waste of money,
Yep.
that's what I want to do.
Yep. This is my experiment that could completely be a waste of money, but yeah.
And the nice thing with the distilling is, like, it used to be I always wanted the next big piece of equipment.
Yeah.
I wanted that next size still.
Yeah.
Where we're at now, I'm actually very happy equipment-wise,
Yeah.
which makes my wife happy because that means the business doesn't have to spend any big money on,
Yeah.
new big, shiny stills. But and the music, there is.
I was going to ask, is that turning more into like a thing that you do for yourself than it is? Because you were saying earlier about writing, for your daughter and stuff, and it seems like the way you talk about it, it turns like it's turning more into something that you do for yourself more.
It really is. But I think as soon as I started accepting that and embracing that,
Yeah.
and being like, okay, it is okay to have this as a hobby to just do for myself. That's not selfish. That's not squandering, any talent or anything like that.
No.
Like it's totally okay to do something for me. But as soon as I got comfortable with that, now all of a sudden, like some of my friends who we used to play together, I'd open up for him, he'd open up for me. Now that we're older,
Yeah.
and he's getting back into doing some gigs, it kind of makes, like, now all of a sudden I'm like, I think I would like to get back out there and play a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially because now the music scene around here has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
To where it was like this, you needed to be the next party band.
Yeah.
You need to get people on the dance floor, or you need to get people, to come in. Now, with the coffee shop and the distillery, and there's a lot of businesses like that opening around us, we're getting more of that. Just people want that laid back.
It's not just
come in.
Yeah, because it's not just all the college parties and college kids and bars now. Yeah.
No, so it's like, I actually might want to get back into it and play for people again.
That's cool.
And just hang out with my music playing friends and do some shows. We just hosted one. It was really cool. Never thought I'd get to be a part of it. And here I am, the owner of the business that it's happening in. But we pulled like three musicians from the area who are all really cool. And they're quite popular in the area because they've been doing it forever.
Yeah.
And they did almost like a singer-songwriter circle where they just got up on stage and one would play a song and talk about that song. Next one would play a song, talk about that song. And then they would all like play on each other's songs as well.
Yeah.
And it was just three buddies hanging out, playing music. It's like, I could get back into that.
Yeah, it gave you the bug a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are the kind of obstacles that get in your way? I know that generally we all have the same answer to this question, but part of the point of this conversation is to normalize that more, because I think that a lot of younger people or people trying to get into some kind of art, I think that it's important to give realistic expectations, because I don't believe that we do that. And I think that a lot of people don't understand the things that they're going to have to give up, or the hurdles that they're going to face, because I think a lot of us grow from those failures and those hurdles. But I think that a lot of people, especially when they're starting out on their journey, they tend to hit a roadblock, and it feels like that is a no. It feels like somebody's telling them no, when really it's just something that is a teachable moment for yourself. So, what are obstacles that get in your way with all of your different things? And
One of the biggest obstacles, and I've always had to deal with this, but I've never really, like, it wasn't until the past few years that I've actually been able to pinpoint and describe it properly. Mm-hmm. I hyperfixate on things.
Yes.
And when you have so many different hobbies, it's like, okay, right now I'm hyperfixating on coffee roasting.
Yeah.
which means things that I need to get done for the distilling are not happening. And things that I could be doing with the singing and the songwriting are not happening. And it's, one of the biggest obstacles for me is trying to balance that and trying to take a little bit more control over that and use the hyperfixation in a positive way.
Delegating.
Obviously, time in the day is always a huge obstacle.
That's mine. Yeah, it's mine, definitely.
There's only so many hours in the day, and we have businesses to run. We've got 2 kids.
Yeah.
We got a house we just bought that we're having to do renovations on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that stuff, but I think my biggest hurdle is just myself and being able to delegate things properly, or departmentalize where my focus needs to be in that given time.
Yeah, I think life in general is one of those things that I think we tend to get when we're dealing with general life stuff. Most, like for me, a day-to-day 9 to 5 is my big life thing that gets in my way. But I think that as events occur, I think we tend to look back on those things and say, well, this happened and I got behind because of this. And I think that those are more normal things to get in people's way than I think a lot of people understand. And if we can look at that and say, it's okay, I dealt with that thing, I'm still this person, this is still my thing that I need to do, then I think that helps a lot of people say to themselves, it's okay, I got to deal with this thing right now. That doesn't make me any less. So being that's where we are, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
That is my absolute curse, and I like to talk to other people about it. Even before doing this, I like to hear other people's, what triggers it, how do you get over it, because I'm trying to get other ideas from other people, because I just ride it out till I get the itch that is stronger than feeling like an imposter. So yeah, how does it affect you? Is it brought on by something, and how do you deal with it?
For me, so yeah, all 3 of those things. There's major imposter syndrome involved in all of it. Coffee roasting, I'm kind of late to the game. So, there's all these other guys that are out there doing it, and they're talking about things that, like, you're like, well, I got this bean from this altitude. I spoke with the farmer and did this, that, and the other. And there's me where I'm like, well, I'm just starting out, but, I'm working with Royal New York. They're an importer. I don't really talk to the farmers at all. I don't really do any of that stuff. Am I really a coffee roaster? Because I don't know where my Sumatra Mandeling, what altitude it was in. Like, does that make me a bad coffee roaster then? Because I'm not as knowledgeable as them? The singer-songwriter, I think every singer-songwriter has imposter syndrome. Yeah. And that's, because it's just so many greats came before you, and there's so many greats that are out there right now. Who am I?
Yeah.
Who cares what my view on a situation is through it?
Yeah. As a writer, one of the things I like to do is read. And anytime I read, I'm like, what am I doing? Like this right here. And I have to remind myself, this went through a process. This went through, years of work. And I'm just, I have to remind myself of that, because I read stuff and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm just going to go to work, but okay. Yeah. I get it.
Cool. I got, I haven't listened to the Gaslight Anthem in a while. I'm going to throw them on. And I start listening to them and I'm like, why do I even, I'm never going to be able to pull that off. I don't have that depth in my lyrics. I don't have that ability on the guitar. Like, why am I even wasting my time? There are, honestly, this is no exaggeration, there are many times a year where I look at selling the majority of my musical equipment just because I'm like, why do I have it? Why am I wasting the space? I'm never going to do any of these things that I want to do with it. So just, never going to be Ryan Adams.
Yeah.
Like, I'm too old. I'm too, I don't have anything worthwhile to really say to people.
Too old is me. It gets me sometimes. I'm like, I know where I wanted to be when I was 30, and that was a decade ago. And what am I doing still?
Yep.
Too old gets me. Yep.
And then with distilling, I mean, I'm in northwestern Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
What do we come? Where's our voice in the distilling world?
Yeah.
I'm not from Tennessee or Kentucky. I don't know how to make whiskey. I've never made a drop of whiskey in my life.
Yep.
And I have people that come into the distillery and they're like, "Oh, so what do you got for whiskey?" Well, I don't do whiskey.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, I thought this was a distillery." And
Yeah.
it's like, we are. We just don't do the mainstream. Sorry. That every time customers kind of like look down on us a little bit more because of that, it's like, oh, should I really be doing this?
Yeah.
Maybe I should have spent a few more years looking at whiskey and trying whiskey before I went and, tried to tell people that, hey, rum is not just rum. Like, rum is more than Captain Morgan.
Yeah.
Like, there's nuances. There's quality that can be brought out in rum that, you're not getting from commercial stuff.
Yeah.
But, so the whiskey talk comes back, and it's just like, yeah, I'm not even really a real distiller because I'm focused on what other people consider well alcohol.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think a lot of times, the way that the reason that I want to have this conversation is because I think non-artists don't always grasp the way that their words affect, because it doesn't take anything but, somebody asking you a question like that, and you're like, oh, well, and you explain, and then their response alone is enough to make you stop and question it, whether it's valid or not. And I think that there's a lot of people that don't understand that is diminishing to an artist. It shrinks you, and it makes it harder. It does make it a lot harder. So is there anything you do when imposter syndrome hits you?
Well, I mean, for some of it, not really. Just push through it. Just keep trucking. But with the distilling, so I do. This is dirty little secret here. In my office at the distillery, next to a whole bunch of really good bottles of rum that I have from some other craft distilleries that I really look up to.
Yeah.
I do have a bottle of Kraken, and I have a bottle of Blackheart.
Yeah.
Which are two really bad rums that are hugely commercially successful.
Yeah.
And with the distillery, people will talk down to me about the rum, or they'll, not even necessarily mean to talk down to me about it. They don't realize that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, they don't grasp that. But yeah, a lot of times I'll just go back and I'll just pour, a quarter of a shot of one of those rums and take a sip and go, yeah, my rum blows this out of the water.
It's better than this. Yep.
I'm doing this because I'm making something quality.
Yep.
In a world full of garbage.
Yep.
There are some people who are really enjoying finding somebody who's making quality. It may only be one person every year, but there's that one person that's looking forward to what I'm doing.
And that's enough. To me, that's enough.
That's all it takes. I think a lot of people who are creators, who, have that creative gene, it doesn't take much for the ego boost.
Yeah. But it does take validation, because without validation. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But just simple little things. Just, I'll go back to remembering, one guy who drank my naval strength rum. And the only reason he grabbed it was because he was in the Navy and it had naval strength on it, and he didn't know anything about that term. He didn't know anything. He just saw it and thought it was cool, and then sent me a message 2 weeks later that him and a few of his friends sat around and drank that entire bottle one night.
Yeah.
Just reminiscing about boot camp and going through different situations together, and it was just really nice for them to sit back and drink and be able to talk.
Yeah.
And it's like, that meant something. Like that, I go back to that and I remember that, and I'm like, yes, I am doing something worthwhile.
Yeah, and especially when somebody actually reaches out and says this thing made an impact on me, because people don't normally do that. People
No.
don't like passively just I'm going to let everybody know I enjoyed something. It usually takes something special that really got them to say I need to tell somebody that this was really good. So to me that always means quite a bit when somebody, even just acknowledges it, because
Yeah.
it means a lot. Okay. So what's something that when you're looking around at all these things and you see other people, like when you're talking about other people who are farther along or been doing this longer than you, what's something that you wish in any one of those fields, what is something that you wish people talked more about?
Um, well, I mean, with the coffee roasting, one of the things I thought was, or not thought, one of the things I wish was more of a conversation is uh, sourcing of beans. And I wish people talked more about where beans were coming from and how that affects areas, especially because, most people don't even realize, you know, a coffee bean is a coffee bean. Maxwell House, Folgers, whatever, it's coffee. And
Yeah.
that's most people's approach to coffee. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I wish people just openly knew more about what was going on behind that bean, and how, a lot of the bigger brands, they're buying these Brazilian beans. The reason why Brazil is so popular is because there's so much coffee and they can get it for, under $1 a pound because they're utilizing slave labor.
Yeah.
And when I was starting to roast coffee, Brazil was cheap, so it was good to buy, because if I burnt it or I messed it up, I wasn't out a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
But that was because I was, even at that point, at that stage, I was unaware of the slave trade still going on behind coffee. And it's one of those things where I wish people talked about it more, especially
Yeah.
within other roasters and everything. But I feel like a lot of roasters just kind of like brush over it because, well,
They don't want
it
to
makes
know.
the beans cheap.
Yeah.
It makes them cheap, and we can afford to screw up a couple times
Yeah.
without breaking the bank. And we just need to turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah.
Acknowledge it when somebody brings it up and say, I know that is absolutely terrible. But in the meantime, they keep their shelves packed with Ethiopian coffee beans and Brazilian coffee beans.
Yeah.
Where we switched over all of our blends, our main stuff is from Sumatra. It's in
Yeah.
Indonesia.
Yeah.
It's co-op, there's things you can do to be sustainable.
Yeah.
But people coming into the coffee world especially in the roasting world, we have no idea that that's in the underbelly of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. I like that. It's something that the point of that question is to try to get, information that people don't know about your field for anybody interested. So that's good. That's good. What about in distilling or music, or you don't have to have something for those, but
Oh no, but there is stuff for everything. That's music. The biggest one is when you're younger and you're getting into it. Like, the goal is to always kind of mimic, the musicians that you look up to, mimic your heroes and everything, and then that ends up, I don't know, it puts a lot of unnecessary pressure on somebody who's just learning how to do things,
yeah.
and it really hinders finding your own voice. But it's just one of those things that's just the commonplace. That's the way to do it. And then you end up with, I was a manager at a coffee shop before we owned one, and we had an open mic night where there was a large middle and high school crowd.
Yeah.
And a lot of those kids stopped playing music after a while because they couldn't create the song to sound like their idol.
Yeah.
My voice just isn't good enough. I'm just not good enough on guitar, and I'm not getting it, so I'm done.
Yeah, I talk a lot about when you're first starting out with writing or music or something. There's always the "fake it till you make it" phrase, and I think that is to somebody really really wanting to. I think that that can be detrimental. Yep. Because if you're trying to fake it, what are you trying to fake? You're trying to fake it to be somebody that you look up to. And when you're not confident enough to, it all requires you to find your own voice. And if you're faking it, I think you're hobbling yourself. You're kicking your feet out from underneath of you. And I think that needs to be a more realistic, not tell you, you're never going to be that, but it's going to take work. It's going to take failure. It's going to take people telling you no, and you have to be able to take that criticism. And I think that there's a lot of crossover between writing and songwriting and things like that. I think there's a lot of crossover. So.
Oh yeah. And the whole, I don't know. I do like actually. I this may be the wrong approach, but I have told people before, especially some of these kids who are, they stop showing up to the open mic, and then we'd see them and be like, "Hey, what's going on? You haven't been in? Oh, I just quit." And they tell us the whole thing. And I mean, I've told a couple people like, "Oh, well, you're never gonna be Ed Sheeran.
Yeah,
you're never gonna be there because you're not him.
Yeah,
you're you.
Experiences." Yep, and experiences inform our art, and we have to be able to look at that instead of other people's.
Yeah, and it's you can sound just you. I'm sure if you practiced and got good enough, you could sound just like him.
Yep.
But then, why would anybody listen to you? They could just go listen to Ed Sheeran. He's already famous.
Yep.
Like we need to be okay with telling people it's okay to suck at first.
Yeah, because that's how you find your voice. Yeah.
But you're gonna find your own situation and your niche in this. And you're going to go your way with that. And you're going to be a lot happier in the end than I wasted, 4 years of my life trying to, mimic this music. Yep. And it's not even really what I enjoy anymore. Yep. It's not a part of who I am.
No, because you grow. And you're stuck trying to still do the thing. And that's not even where your heart's at anymore. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Distilling.
Distilling.
We wish people talk about more. I'm super into this distilling thing because I didn't. I mean, I know the word and I understand the concept, but it is just intriguing.
It is definitely fascinating. But yeah,
that's a hard one.
It's a hard one because it's like, what do I wish? There's so much out there. It's almost like I wish people would stop talking about distilling sometimes, because alchemy. Then we end up with a lot of people saying the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And again, we end up getting into this muddled, like when you have an entire community all repeating the same little tidbit of information.
Yeah.
That's all the information you have.
Yeah. Like
people need to, I don't know.
It's an experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like one of those things that the more out of the lines you color, the more you discover. To me, that's what it seems. Yep.
Yeah. And there's a lot more than what, there's a lot more than what the TV shows show. We all know that TV show is about 95% fake and 5% some real situations.
Yeah.
But when that's what everybody talks about and that's what everybody knows is moonshine.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but there's a whole nother side of it as well. There's a
what else is there?
Side of it.
Yeah.
There's taking fresh hibiscus and putting it through your still, and creating a whole nother flavor that you've never tasted before. There's learning how to balance things in cocktail making. Like your alcohol, you distilled this, but its journey isn't over yet.
Yeah.
There's so much more that it can do. And when you start matching it up with other things, it just becomes even better.
Yeah. That's cool.
Distilling is an amazing thing.
We have a
lot of
we have a honey farm not too far from here. They have a lot of their honeys in stores, but we took a tour about 2 years ago of the whole farm and their whole like process, and they do so much stuff with honey. They do wines, they make soaps, there's so much stuff in their store, and you get to walk through and see how they do like just honey. It's just honey, but they do so much stuff with it. It's insane. And to me, I always think about stuff like that. Like when I was reading about distilling, trying to get prepared so I wasn't totally stupid. Stuff like that. It always makes me think, who were these people that sat down and said, we're going to try this thing. We're going to do this thing. And, there's always steps that had to, culturally, come from going, here's just honey, to we made wine out of this, we made this out of this. Like the same thing with distilling, that somebody sat down and said, we're going to try this process. And then people grew that over time. Yeah. So the more you stay, inside the lines, the less that can grow and more things can be discovered. So cool.
A perfect example of that is we have a product that we've been working on and developing, and we call it the tart spirit. It's spelled Tarte, more like the savory tart, like an onion tart, and it is a fermented garlic liquor.
Yeah.
We actually start with raw garlic. We lacto ferment it for a couple of weeks, and then we turn it into a mash. We ferment that, and we distill it out. When we distill it through fresh basil and peppercorns, and create this really savory alcohol that's really cool to cook with, really good in a Bloody Mary. But when we were doing it, everything that we do, because we are, we're commercial, like we're a legal setup, we have to get all of our recipes approved through the federal government.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that I'm not throwing anything in there that's, going to kill somebody. Like I'm not trying to distill bitter almonds. So, you distill bitter almonds, you end up with, arsenic through everything, and you're going to kill a person.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Bitter versus sweet almonds. You got to know the difference. Otherwise, you're going to kill a bunch of people. Learn that one. Not the hard.
I learned something new. Cool.
But like,
not cool that you could do that, but cool that I learned something.
Yeah. But yeah, so we sent this recipe in, and it took us a little while to get it approved because we had to go back and forth with them because this was something new.
Yeah.
For them, and I've always been under the assumption, the quote is, every story that will ever be told has already been written.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always gone over that with everything. Like, I'm not going to do anything new in coffee that hasn't already been done. Yeah. I'm not going to do anything new in distilling that hasn't already been done. Apparently, I'm wrong.
And somebody was like, what is this?
Yeah. Explain this process to me. How are you doing this? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
This sounds absolutely horrendous. And then we start talking about it, and they're like, actually, it sounds better and better when you actually explain it, and I'm not just reading, we're going to distill a lot of garlic.
But that's got to be motivating when somebody actually, you have that I'm not going to find anything new mentality, because it's a protective mechanism as a creator. And then when somebody's like, what is this? That's got to be motivating. It's got to be like, holy crap.
Well, it's motivating, but at the same time, it's also like, am I doing something wrong?
Yeah. Like, so imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I just filled that form out wrong. What I'm doing is actually completely normal, and they've seen this a million times over. I mean, that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Is that they just filled the form out incorrect.
Yeah.
And then when they come back and they're like, no, everything's filled out 100% right. We just don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. And now we're doing one that's fermented tomatoes and bell peppers and onions, distilled through a whole bunch of like thyme and rosemary and oregano and basil. And it smells like marinara sauce, and it tastes like an Italian appetizer. It's absolutely wonderful. This
is intriguing. This just like the science of it, the stuff like that just fascinates me. And it's one of those things where I'm like, this is intriguing, but I have absolutely no time to figure this out. But
yeah,
I don't need another.
That really likes to collect hobbies.
Yeah, I don't need another. I don't need another thing. No. It's like, I love music. I appreciate music. I try to understand music, but I don't have a single musical bone in my body, But same thing. Like, you can appreciate it without.
Yeah.
That just sounds intriguing.
It's so much fun. Like I tell people all the time, I'm sorry if I sound like I'm bragging, but yeah, no, I have like one of the best careers in the world. Like I get to distill random crap and make really tasty drinks.
So I think I kind of reworked the end of this after I'm still like trying to find a groove here with these things. So a lot of times in our lives, we get unwarranted advice. Before I had asked this question was more about, what advice would you give to people in, to you when you were younger, to other people. But I feel like we get a lot of unwarranted advice. And if you met a younger, roaster, singer, songwriter, or distiller, what is some unasked for, unwarranted advice that you would feel was necessary for them to have, whether they wanted it or not? What would be worth risking giving unwarranted advice for to give it to them? Because a lot of times we go, I don't care. I don't want to hear that. Stop talking. But I think that there are situations where you could say, I know this is unwarranted, but you should know this. So I think it's a better question. It's a little bit harder question, but
it's a really good question too. Like that's a thinker.
What would you risk being an asshole for to tell somebody that you really thought they would need to know?
And I think I would have had a hard time hearing this.
Yeah.
At the beginning of everything that I've done, like the last thing I want to hear from people, but it's really something that, I would tell somebody, even if, I knew I was going to come off as, there is a better chance that you're going to fail than you're going to make it.
Yeah.
Which is all the better reason to just say, fuck it.
Yep.
And do you.
Yep.
Because at least while you're failing, you failed as you.
Cool.
Not trying to copy some other sad shit.
I like it. Yeah, that I think mine is the fake it till you make it thing. That's always been my answer to that question. I wish I hadn't heard that from all the writing books that I read as a kid, how to write, how to do this, how to do that, how to, they all say that. Books written by authors in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they all say that. And I wish that was something somebody said to me. Don't do that. Don't pretend, just do. So, yeah, I like that.
Any hobby or anything you pick up, you're more than likely going to fail.
Yep. But I feel like there's a line there too where you only really fail when you absolutely stop.
Yes.
Like if you can trip, you can fall, you can, all the things are going to happen. You're going to feel like shit about it a lot, but you only really fail when you stop trying.
Yeah. Our coffee shop should have failed every single year.
Yeah.
We've been open up until the last couple of years. It should have just spectacularly failed.
Yeah.
But we just kept pushing forward. We just kept, okay, well, we'll stay open one more day. We're going to push this one more day. It's not actually a failure until you stop doing it and just walk away from it.
Yep. And even then, I think sometimes like we can still be like if you were just, if that were to happen and you were to you would still continue roasting. Even if you did have, so even at that, you're still doing that thing. And I think that the definition of fail is a bar we set for ourselves. And I think we let other people tell us what that bar is a lot of the time. I think we let other people define that instead of moving the bar for ourselves. And I think that that's something that we should try to more make something. What do I define as a failure? Well, I'm just going to keep pushing that because I don't want to ever get to that point.
No.
So, all right.
No, but something in that you know, I had, it's one of those moments. I had a thought. Yeah. I had a thought. Something that you said triggered something. I was like, oh, this would be good to say. And now I've just completely lost it.
Yeah, I have thoughts all the time. I can't keep them anywhere. So, well, I think, let me make sure. I think that's it. This has been good. I'm really intrigued about the distilling thing. I've actually kept the stuff I was reading up so I could read it later, because I was going to try to, when I put this out there for tomorrow morning, I want to maybe put some extra stuff in there. I did mean to mention too, I don't think I mentioned it while we were talking, the QR code up in the corner now goes to Americans for the Arts. Yes. I believe it goes straight to their donation page. So that is always a good cause. And when I put this on the podcast, it's going to be in the show notes on the audio version, the link for it. So it'll always be out there. So whenever it gets stumbled upon by anyone. So I'm going to do my close real quick, and I'll be right back. All right. Thank you for episode 6. This kind of was a last minute conversation, but I'm glad we have it. There was some really good moments. And again, if anybody found anything of value in it, my QR code's up there, and I highly, highly recommend you go back. And if you really want to give something to anything, go back and get the one for the Americans for the Arts. That helps a lot of people. So I think that's it. Thanks for coming again this week, and anybody else that wants to have a conversation, you can find me on all of the things at all the places, and I'm not really good at listing things like that. So I'm going to do the outro, and I'll see y'all next week. Whatever it is that you do, keep at it.